Capcom released 3 different Mega Man games for 3 different consoles at the end of 1993, and I recently played them all. First up, Mega Man IV on Game Boy. Following a lackluster beginning on the Prime portable device, Minakuchi Engineering was back in business with Capcom. This time they shocked me. I expected to see the best Game Boy Mega Man, but I didn't expect such a huge leap in quality. The result is something arguably more impressive than what Capcom were making themselves. It seemed that their newest NES releases were staying safe without adding much. They outsourced Mega Man's Game Boy development, and Minakuchi outshone them there. It was a weird time for Mega Man, as he was still very popular, but the new releases weren't selling so well. They constantly received criticism for recycling the same thing with each game. Meanwhile, Minakuchi quietly added new things to change up the formula. Mega Man IV with Roman numerals, more commonly spoken as Mega Man World 4, opens up with the impossible, an animated cutscene on Game Boy. Sort of, we've seen better. I believe this is the first time the Game Boy series showed the story on the title screen though. After starting the game, you're taken to Dr. Light's lab where he explains a new function. You can now collect P-chips. How exciting. Okay, it's actually a good feature because it's sort of like collecting coins so you can buy upgrades in a shop costing different values. You can trade in your P-chips at the lab between each level and Dr. Light will make an item for you. He can make the usual 1-ups and E-tanks and a selection of items never seen before in a Mega Man game. The cheapest item is a mini E-tank, 4 of which make a regular E-tank, and several of these are placed within levels too. Items exclusive to the shop include the W-tank, S-tank, and energy balancer. The most intriguing one to me is the balancer. Whenever you find weapon energy in the stages, you no longer need to have a weapon equipped to pick it up. If you don't have anything equipped, it will automatically be added to the weapon with the lowest energy. There's one thing that may have limited the creativity in this game. As seen in the previous Game Boy games, they reuse Robot Masters and their weapons from the NES. This game takes the remaining 4 bosses from NES Mega Man 4 and later adds 4 from Mega Man 5. However, none of the stages were repeated between consoles and that continues here, so it's still its own unique game. Despite these limitations, I saw a few unexpected creative designs and I really enjoyed playing this game. They even made a new stage selection screen almost like a computer database, and for the first 4 bosses you get a look at their stage's environment. Minakuchi frequently went above and beyond with this game. The stage designs aren't perfect, but I appreciate most of them doing something else to deviate from the usual formula. I started with Toadman, who once again lives in the sewers below rainy skies. It begins in the rain and spends a long time teaching the player what to expect with the flowing water. That's nice, but this introduction is too long without a single enemy. Afterwards, there were a lot of similarities with the NES counterpart. They brought back the giant snail mini-boss, and overall I felt they toned down the stage's difficulty. It's perfectly fine and a good place to start. It used the gimmicks well, even if it didn't present me with anything unexpected. A simpler stage like this allowed me to test the controls easily, and I noticed a change to the charged buster. There's a small knockback effect when you fire at full charge, which helps balance out its power. That's a creative solution, and I'm surprised by how effective it is. It makes you think about when and where you can use the charged buster. Next, I went to Brightman, which featured the same gimmick of the lights turning off. The bulb-shaped Watton enemies are hazardous, but if you shoot them, you lose sight of everything around Mega Man. Shoot a Dompan enemy afterwards, and they'll release fireworks to turn the lights on again. This adaptation of the stage features new obstacles that cause darkness, and plenty of precise platforming over perilous pits. You know what I noticed in both stages so far though? Lag. I don't mean to be a downer, but this game's slowdown is pretty aggressive. I'll cut it some slack since it's the Game Boy and Minakuchi pushed it past its limits. In this case, it's a sign that they were trying to overachieve. I can't let it slide when it happens this frequently though. If you're bothered by forms of lag, this game isn't for you. It didn't stop me from enjoying the game because behind all that slowdown is a genuinely awesome game. It could have been one of the best in the series, and it's miles beyond its Game Boy ancestors. The other 2 stages available from the beginning are for Pharaoh Man and Ring Man. They take a slightly different approach to the NES stages without adding much. While they're repetitive, it's refreshing to see a new level for these Robot Masters. I also liked that the Robot Master stages are longer in this game. The checkpoints are spaced out as a result, which can be frustrating, but it's a good way of naturally increasing the difficulty. I enjoyed how challenging the whole game was. The last thing to mention about the first 4 available stages is their letter tokens. Each stage contains 1 letter token, and these 4 spell out beat. If you get all 4, you can actually beat the game on the spot. Or if that doesn't work for some strange reason, you'll gain access to the bird named Beat. You don't need Beat to beat the game, it's just a bonus for doing a little extra. Now I bet you weren't wondering, what is the plot this time? Scientists from all over the world had gathered for the annual World Robot Expo, showcasing robots developed for peace. I'll give you 3 guesses to figure out who crashed the party and stole the robots to help in his quest for world domination. When you finish the first 4 stages, the culprit peeks out of his UFO to show off those famous eyebrows, and you'll reach the shocking conclusion that Dr. Wily is the mastermind again. I don't know if you can really call him a mastermind, but somehow he keeps getting away with his plans, and it's your job to fix that. Mega Man follows Wily to the forest when suddenly the walking Wily station emerges from behind the trees. Buster Fire is exchanged in a lengthy cutscene, which I liked, but I wish I could have played during this time. It leads into a boss fight with the satellite cannon itself, which didn't quite have the same epic scale. However, this boss is only the start of the stage, and that was intriguing. The section after the fight doesn't have any enemies, instead introducing a new concept for platforming. It seems like you're going through the giant missile chambers. They're not shooting at you, but you need to shoot them to clear the way, and that causes a small explosion. Very small. Easy to avoid for now, but this is setting up for later. This whole stage is basically an interlude between Robot Master selections, although I liked it in the end. Mega Man World 3 had this concept previously, and this time there's a boss at the beginning and the end of the stage, and it feels important to the story if you're following that. These Game Boy games all feature a Mega Man killer, lovingly created by Dr. Wily himself. The new killer is Ballade, who isn't revealing all of his cards yet. It seems like a standard Robot Master fight, although he has no particular weaknesses. Beat is helpful here, so he can slowly peck away at Ballade's health bar. The second half of the game includes 4 Robot Masters from NES Mega Man 5 as expected. Welcome back Crystal Man, Napalm Man, Stone Man, and Charge Man. I wish they still had a preview of their environment on the selection screen, since the preview instead shows another angle of the boss themselves. One thing stands out to me now, having refreshed myself on the story. Napalm Man is a robot developed for peace? How do you explain that? It may have been my imagination, but I felt that these stages increased in length again, and each one truly felt like its own journey. The visuals became more impressive, and everything had a different approach to the home console stages. I enjoyed all of them, and the one I want to focus on is, in fact, Napalm Man's stage. Whether he was made for peace or not, his stage introduces creative new ideas of platforming. And before that, I noticed the theme was very different, as it was seemingly inside a factory. The recurring challenge is all about the rolling drill, and it's used differently with every appearance. Its spikes cause instant death, but you'll often need it as a platform. I enjoyed timing my movement around them and taking advantage of them clearing a path for me. There were also areas that included fire unless you make it rain. Ah yes, you already have Toadman's Rain Flush weapon at this point. This is the only way to extinguish the fire, allowing you to reach a secret room with Proto Man. He's hanging out with a full E-Tank and a large P-Chip, and even leaves a 1-up before teleporting away. I loved utilizing the weapons to interact with the environment. Everything leading up to Napalm Man was new and interesting, and this was one of my favorite stages in the entire series so far. I doubt this is a popular opinion, since it's paced slowly unlike other levels, and this game doesn't get much attention. Well, I think this game should get more attention than most of the console series. Now let's jump into the end game, past the Robot Master stages. Wait, we can only do that if you found the other 4-letter tokens, spelling out Wily. With these tokens in hand, the gates will open, and there's a short introduction before a rematch with Ballade. This time, he has a weapon, although it feels like the same fight. You'll obtain his weapon after his second defeat, and it's named the Ballade Cracker. Immediately after Ballade, you'll need to think fast. The stage is exploding behind you, and the only way forward is to clear out a path with missiles. This section is more like a puzzle platformer, as you can't explode too many missiles, otherwise you won't have anything to stand on. This also requires you to utilize a different weapon, and the Ballade Cracker is the perfect choice. You can throw it in any direction, and it causes a small explosion of its own, so it can clear bigger paths as well. I've never seen anything like this in a Mega Man game either. Minakuchi really proved themselves. Mega Man escapes the Wily station, and as is tradition for the Game Boy games, the next stop is up in space. The Wily battleship doesn't try to do too much, but it's a very solid ending to the game. A lot of Mega Man games don't end so smoothly. I would also like to compliment the new music compositions added. During the first parts of the game, most music is reused from the NES, while the later sections show off some great Game Boy tunes. The new bosses during the endgame were fun too, and many were a different style than we usually see. The boss on the battleship bridge, aptly named Bridge, used uses the weapons of various robot masters to fight, as well as an odd mechanical arm. The little one-eyed hunter appears twice, and it's never too hard, but always fun to fight. The final sequence of bosses also makes for one of the better endings so far. In true Wily fashion, the last stage consists of 3 fights. It starts with the Wily Golem, and this is one of the only uses of the Power Stone weapon that I actually like. In a previous video, I mentioned that this is one of the dumbest weapons invented by Capcom, and I stand by that. It just so happens that it's a great way to hit this boss's weak spot. The second part is higher up against the Robo-Iron Golem's head, and then it's onwards to the UFO fight. The final battle is another great opportunity to use the Ballad Cracker. All of the weaknesses for the endgame bosses made sense, which is rare. Well, guess what? Dr. Wily escapes after he's been defeated, and you have to escape too. Sadly, it's just a cutscene as usual. The battleship is about to blow up, and Mega Man slowly shoots his way out. He can't open the last door, but then a very injured Ballad swoops in to sacrifice himself with a door-opening explosion. He realized he was wrong after their battle and wanted to do one final thing to help. Honestly, I didn't feel much from this scene, but it rounded out the game in an interesting way. Most Mega Man games are good, but surprisingly few reach greatness if you stop to look at the whole series. The Game Boy series is often left out of consideration these days, and I understand why. However, if you want to play the best games in the classic series, leaving this game out is a mistake. Sure, it lags a lot, and won't give you the silky smooth gameplay you might expect, but this is the first game that dared to do more than the basic formula Capcom had been clinging on to for years. Of course, it's because Capcom didn't make it themselves. It has its flaws, but it was almost as good as the best NES Mega Man games, and is surely one of the best Game Boy platformers ever made. Therefore, my final score for Game Boy Mega Man IV will be 8 out of 10. Obviously, I would recommend this game to fans of the series or the Game Boy itself. I didn't give it a higher score because it can be bland at times, though to a lesser extent than the other releases of the time. I wonder if Capcom will ever release a collection for this handheld series. Mega Man Mania was announced for the Game Boy Advance in the early 2000s, and it would have remade all 5 games in the Mega Man World series. We currently have the next best option, which is that all 5 are available with Nintendo Switch Online, unlike most other Mega Man games. Coverage at release is important in helping games sell well, and this game was just another Mega Man game. That's how people were feeling about the series before this point too. Did we really need more? Electronic Gaming Monthly left positive comments, while their average score dipped down to 7.75 out of 10. Nintendo Power never gave a score, but they featured a 6-page preview. You can see why people would mistake this for just another Mega Man game. It looks more or less the same as their other series previews. They did at least mention the P-chips and upgrades from Dr. Wright's lab. Oh yeah, even though we know his English name is Dr. Light, they still translated it as Wright inside the game, and that made it into this preview. Okay, one more set of reviews from Famitsu. They were nice enough to give it an average score of 6.25 out of 10. No, really, that means this is one of their favorites in the series. Tell me, did you agree with the points I've made? What rating would you give Mega Man 4 for the Game Boy, initially released in 1993? Use your P-chips to buy the like button upgrade and throw an S-tank at me. S for subscribe, that is. As ever, thank you for watching, and please continue to be your own unique self.
Look here, toddler. Back in my day, we barely even had internet. Sorry.